So we're going to start our day with gathering the voices of survivors. We know this is a challenging conversation. We're going to hear from each of our panelists for about 20 minutes to make sure everybody has a chance to share their perspective on the search and recovery of missing children. It is my pleasure to introduce our panel in the order they will be speaking. Monsieur Normand Kistabiche, Abitiwini First Nation from Quebec. Normand. We have Emma Reelis from Goose Bay in Newfoundland. And we will finish off and round out our panel with Angie Crerar from Grand Prairie, Alberta. Norman will now start us off.
Koiga Kana, Gada Shiagoma, Gitsuminadan, Hebi de Jagabuan, Hebi de Vajuman, Kabi Jessian, Hebi Madesian. Je vais parler français. C'est la seconde qu'on m'a imposée, c'est la seconde langue qu'on m'a imposée. Si vous voulez aller chercher des écouteurs, je vais vous attendre. Everybody's going to understand what I'm going to say in French? Okay? Can I know this? Pensionnat. Je suis allé au pensionnat pendant 7 ans, de 1958 jusqu'à 1958 jusqu'à 64. Et je voulais y aller, moi, au pensionnat. Je voulais tellement y aller parce que vous connaissez sûrement mon frère Richard Kistabiche, qui est toujours impliqué au niveau national sur le comité de réconciliation et de vérité. C'est lui qui est allé en premier, puis j'ai une autre sœur qu'on j'appelle Jacqueline. Je voulais les suivre. Je voulais tellement y aller au début. Malheureusement, la première journée, c'était déjà la première catastrophe que j'ai connue, que j'ai subi une maltraitance au niveau de la santé parce que quand je suis arrivé, je n'avais pas mangé quand je suis parti de chez nous, puis je voulais manger quand je suis arrivé là déjà. Puis je suis arrivé dans l'après-midi de très de bonne heure. Quand c'est arrivé à l'heure du souper, j'avais tellement faim. OK, j'ai mangé. Et qu'est-ce que ça fait quand tu manges bien gros? Surtout quand que les riz ou tomates, les riz n'étaient pas cuits tout à fait. Ma donne que vous voyez là, mais il est devenu plus gros que ça. J'ai tombé sans connaissance, c'était le premier traitement que j'ai eu. Il ne me croyait pas, le frère qui m'a ramassé, qui m'a pris par le chignon du cou. Puis il m'a garoché à terre comme un objet. J'étais sans connaissance. De là, quand je me suis réveillé, je me suis réveillé en haut à l'infirmerie. J'ai entendu pleurer quelqu'un à côté de moi. C'était mon frère qui pleurait. Quand je me suis réveillé, j'ai dit... on se sauve-tu? On s'en va-tu? Faut pas rester ici, c'est pas bien, on n'est pas traité comme il faut. C'est la première idée que j'ai eue quand je me suis réveillé de cette... Finalement, j'ai accepté de rester là. J'ai pleuré pendant toutes les nuits, pendant au moins les 2 premières semaines, peut-être même tout le mois, toutes les nuits, avant de me rendormir, puis le lendemain, mais pas capable de fonctionner, je ne comprenais pas le français. Puis en passant, je ne savais pas que je m'appelais Normand Kistabiche en rentrant au pensionnat. Normand Kistabiche. C'est un nom qu'on m'a donné quand j'étais bébé, mais on m'a toujours appelé Moni. Une petite anecdote pour ce nom-là, parce que j'avais un chien avec moi toujours, quand j'étais petit. Je courais, je me suivais partout, puis il s'appelait Moni. Fait que j'ai le nom de mon chien, mon premier chien. Puis j'aime mieux qu'on m'appelle Moni. Si vous me voyez, appelez-moi Moni. J'ai pas eu connaissance d'un décès. Mais ma conjointe ici assise s'en souvient qu'on a eu un décès au pensionnat, même qui a été exposé dans le parloir où on recevait la visite de nos parents. Moi, j'étais pas là quand c'est arrivé. J'étais dans un autre pensionnat. J'étais allé à Pointe-Bleue, à Mastouillage jusqu'aujourd'hui, pour une raison spécifique. J'étais allé jouer au hockey avec les Indiens du Québec dans ce temps-là, à Québec. Puis oui. Contre Guy Lafleur. Vous connaissez Guy Lafleur, hein? Ben, j'ai joué contre lui. Puis moi, pour Guy Lafleur, c'était un mauvais perdant. C'est vrai? C'est moi qui le couvrais, qui le surveillais. Il ne touchait pas la rondelle 5 secondes. Je vous le dis. Il ne touchait pas la rondelle pendant 5 secondes parce que je l'enlevais tout de suite. Puis il me tapait dessus, il me tapait du doigt, tapait mes jambes, me tapait sur le... En tout cas, il n'y a jamais eu de punition. Anyway, c'est une anecdote, là. J'étais allé 2 ans jouer au hockey quand même pendant que j'étais au pensionnat à Québec. Je me souviens aussi qu'on avait eu un genre d'épidémie dans la première année. Tout le monde était malade. Un genre de je ne sais pas de quoi qu'on avait. On dirait qu'ils nous donnaient, des médicaments pour être malade. On ne mangeait pas bien. La nourriture qu'ils nous donnaient, c'était tout nouveau, mais on avait tellement faim à chaque fois qu'on était obligé de manger. Puis, je pense que c'était une des raisons qu'il y a eu une épidémie. Tout le monde était malade. Tous les dortoirs étaient pleins. Puis, vers la fin, quand le monde commence à guérir, ben, moi, il nous a transférés au 3e étage pour aller finir notre maladie. Puis, apparemment, moi et ma conjointe, on était ensemble, les 2 derniers malades à l'infirmerie, mais on n'était pas ensemble dans le même dortoir, dans le même... Et là, c'était la dernière à être malade avec moi du côté des garçons. Elle s'appelle Émilie, en passant, j'ai oublié. J'ai préparé une évasion. Je me suis sauvé. J'ai préparé, d'abord, moi, je fais très attention à ce que je fais quand je prépare des manigances, des mauvais coups. J'ai pas fait un mauvais coup à m'évadant parce que quand j'ai fait ça, j'ai allé chercher mes linges de mes parents qui m'avaient donné quand je suis rentré au pensionnat. J'ai mis ça dans un sac de plastique. Puis je suis allé cacher, parce qu'on avait des sorties des fins de semaine, des fois, pour aller dans le bois, pour aller poser des collets, pour chasser les lièvres, chasser la padrie. Puis cette fois-là, mes parents avaient déjà déménagé un village pas loin du pensionnat, à peu près 5 ou 6 kilomètres de là. Ça m'a donné plus de courage de faire mon plan d'évasion. Ce que j'ai fait, j'ai pris mes linges quand je suis rentré du pensionnat, je suis allé les cacher en dessous d'un pont qui était proche du pensionnat. Puis, quand je me suis enfui, celle-là, il faisait noir. à peu près vers le début du mois de mai. Durant la nuit, le soir, j'avais ramassé des roches dans la cour des filles, dans la cour des garçons, comme punition d'avoir frappé le chouchou du frère qui nous surveillait. Puis il m'a fait cette punition-là. Fait que moi, j'en ai profité les derniers voyages de roches que j'amenais dans une place qui m'ont dit de les mettre. Il faisait quasiment noir. Je me suis enfui par le bois. Il faisait noir. Tu sais, je marchais dans le bois, puis tassais les branches, me s'accrochais des fois, puis plein de maringouins en passant. Et un moment donné, je sors du bois, je m'en vais chercher mes affaires qui étaient en dessous du pont. Je me déshabille, je prends mes linges. Quand j'ai remis mes vêtements, ils étaient rendus trop petits, j'ai grandi un peu. J'étais bien serré, mes pantalons, mes souliers ne me faisaient plus. En tout cas. J'ai continué à sauver, j'ai couru. J'ai couru jusqu'à chez nous, il faisait noir. Quand j'étais arrivé chez nous, il y a un autre... c'est folle. Là, quand j'étais arrivé chez nous, je n'ai pas été reçu comme je voulais. J'ai surpris mes parents. Qu'est-ce que tu fais ici? Qu'est-ce que tu fais là? Pourquoi tu as fait ci? Pourquoi tu as fait ça? J'ai pas dit un mot. Je n'étais pas capable de parler. Tu sais, quand tu as un gros moton dans la gorge, puis tu as envie de dire, j'ai envie de dire quelque chose, mais je ne suis pas capable. Tout ce que je faisais juste pleurer. Puis là, mon père, je comprends aujourd'hui pourquoi il a fait ça, là. Il est allé voir le voisin à côté, puis demander de nous ramener tout de suite, le même soir, au pensionnat. C'est sûr que moi, c'est pas ça que je voulais. Je voulais au moins les parler de la vérité, de ce qui se passait au pensionnat, de ce qu'on nous faisait, les abus, les agressions physiques, sexuelles évidemment. Je voulais parler de ça, mais je n'étais pas capable. À chaque fois que je parle de ça, ça me revient encore de chercher, là, puis je ne souhaite pas à un enfant de vivre que j'ai vécu là-bas au pensionnat. Je le ferais. Si je saurais qu'il y a des enfants encore qui se font maltraiter comme je me suis fait maltraiter, c'est sûr que je dénoncerais sans hésiter. Fait que mes parents, mon père, il m'a ramené avec le char du voisin au pensionnat, puis rendu au pensionnat, on réveille le principal, le directeur du pensionnat, puis ça faisait un bout de temps que mon père frappait à la porte. Puis là, un moment donné, il vient me chercher, puis on s'en va rencontrer le principal, le directeur de l'école. Puis là, je ne parlais pas français encore, là, OK? J'avais 10 ans, puis je ne parlais pas français. Fait que j'ai dit à mon père ce qu'on nous faisait. On nous maltraitait, on était mal nourris. Puis lui, il disait au directeur. Puis mon abuseur était assis en arrière, à côté, là, à la porte, qui nous écoutait pour me surveiller. Parce qu'après, après ce que j'ai... Oui, j'ai mangé une crise de volée. J'ai parlé français par obligation à la façon comme nous traitaient. Quand on ne savait pas écrire notre nom, on nous mangeait des claques dans ses doigts. Ça, ce bout-là, ça a été le plus difficile pour moi. C'est arrivé avec mes parents, mon père surtout. Je l'ai toujours détesté. Je l'ai toujours... puis en même temps, pourtant, c'était une personne très... comment je dirais ça? Très spirituelle, très compréhensif. Sa réaction, je l'ai compris plusieurs années après, pourquoi il a fait ça. Je voulais rester avec lui, qu'il me prenne dans ses bras, qu'il me dise « je t'aime », puis tout ça, là, tous ces mots-là que j'entendais plus. Je pense que je ne suis pas le seul à avoir été traité comme ça. De plus entendre le mot « je t'aime », puis je t'admire, c'est ce que je voulais entendre de mon père. On m'a quand même mis à la porte l'année suivante. J'étais content de ne pas retourner au pensionnat. Puis, je ne comprenais pas pourquoi mon frère aîné a continué à rester au pensionnat, tandis que moi, j'ai sorti du pensionnat. Pourquoi? Je ne sais pas. Ça, c'est le bout qui m'a fait le plus mal au pensionnat, à part des agressions que j'ai connues, mais au moins, ça fait plus mal d'entendre parler de mal qui vient de la famille, de ne pas eu une compréhension que je voulais, que j'avais besoin. Étant enfant. Tu sais, un enfant de 7, 8, 9, 10 ans, il a besoin d'entendre ces mots-là. Puis on ne l'attendait pas, ça, au pensionnat, non? On ne l'attendait pas, hein? Je me suis évadé aussi dans un autre, je dirais, comment je dirais ça, à la perfection. Je vais devenir parfait dans toutes les choses qu'on va me montrer. Je vais apprendre le français bien comme il faut, je vais apprendre à écrire, je vais être le meilleur de la classe. Ça, c'est tout comment je dirais ça, des modes de m'évader des maltraitances que je subissais. J'étais bon en sport, j'étais bon à l'école, j'étais toujours le premier, juste pour me sauver des maltraitances qu'on subissait. J'étais encore bon, hein? Je vais finir là-dessus parce que le décès que je parlais tantôt, là, c'est que ma conjointe ici la connaissait, cette personne-là qui est morte au pensionnat. Elle s'appelait Maggie Pukachish. Puis, je ne me souviens pas si il l'avait ramené chez les parents, elle non plus. Puis on ne sait pas où est-ce qu'ils l'ont mis. Et ça, là, c'est quand les 215 premiers cadavres, je ne sais pas, sépultures qu'ils ont trouvés en Colombie-Britannique, ça a réveillé quelque chose en dedans de nous autres, de toutes les Premières Nations, tous les survivants, je pense. J'en shake encore quand j'en parle de ça, parce que ça se peut pas qu'il nous a fait ça, de pas respecter il y a un enfant qui meurt. Un enfant! C'est quoi? Il n'y a personne qui a été comme... D'avoir de respect au moins, c'est des tueurs, c'est des assassins. Je suis encore en colère d'ailleurs là-dessus. Ça fait mal, hein? Puis on est rendu quasiment, combien? Quasiment 12 000, là, aujourd'hui. Puis il n'y a pas d'accusation qui se fait. Je ne comprends pas. Le système, il est brisé, il est malhonnête, il n'est pas égal pour tout le monde. On est des beaux riens, des déchets de la société. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire quand ça arrive des choses-là? Qu'est-ce qu'on peut suggérer au gouvernement de faire? De se corriger de son comportement? C'est toutes des questions que je me pose à ce temps depuis que je partage. J'en ai fait des partages, mais première fois comme cela à cause de ces enfants-là qui sont disparus puis qui n'ont pas été inhumés. Il y en a plusieurs qui ont été retrouvés, mais qui n'ont pas été encore replacés où ce qu'ils doivent être. C'est grave. C'est impardonnable. Réfléchissons à ça, puis j'espère qu'à un moment donné, on va se le partager, puis de se comprendre, de dire de quelle manière qu'on devrait aborder ce sujet. C'est délicat, hein, c'est très, très, très délicat. Pour les parents, peut-être qu'ils n'existent plus, mais il y a des sœurs et frères et sœurs qui sont encore en vie. Que-tu m'égoûtes de m'avoir écouté? Je suis satisfait de ce que j'ai dit. Je voulais faire des jokes, mais ça fait trop mal de faire des jokes un matin. Merci beaucoup. Tu m'égoûtes. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Emma Reelis. I was Inuit and born in Nain, Labrador. In 1959, my father passed away. And the minister came to, he passed away in August of 59, and school started in September. The minister came to my mother and said, we'll give you an ultimatum. You put your children up for adoption or they'll go to residential school. So 3 of the children was old enough to go to school. So I had two other sisters that were home, so they were, my youngest sister was 6 months old when my dad died, so she stayed home with my mother, and mother's sister wasn't old enough to go, so she stayed home too. But unfortunately, my mother began to drink. So she was only 34, 35 when my dad passed away. So I went to residential school, and that's when my life changed. We were called Eskimos. You were stupid, you weren't going to amount to anything, so what goes on here is no one going to believe you anyway. So I was sexually abused, and when you did anything wrong, you were put in a room, and that's where you stayed until they were ready to let you out. Your food was just passed into you, and if you ate it well and good, if you didn't eat it well, that was your choice. So I had a bad toothache one night, one day, and I had to get my tooth pulled out. So they took me over to the nurse's station, but the doctor didn't deaden my gums. He just pulled my tooth with nothing there to kill the. I'll never forget that, and ever since that day, I didn't look after my teeth, so I ended up getting a plate in years to come. But anyway, as my life went on, I stayed in the residential school for four years. I was 14 or 15 when I made up my mind that I was going to run away and leave the residential school. So that's what I did. I went home to my mother and I said, I'm leaving school. So I never stayed, and I went out and I had a family member that worked up to the nurse's station. And I went up and asked him, was it possible if I could get a job at the nurse's station? They're just doing some cleaning or whatever. And he said, well, are you going back to school? And I said, no, I'm not going back to school because, I said, they don't treat me very nice there. In the morning when we get up to go to school, we have to do all kinds of chores. You have to make sure all the vegetables were done for a meal during the day. You had to get up in the morning and make the beds. Time you went to school, you had a whole day's work done. So how could you learn going to school with all this on your mind at 10 years old? I didn't learn. I was so anyway, I was sexually abused, and I just couldn't handle that anymore either. So, and no one's going to believe you anyway. So anyway, that was in the back of my mind all the time, but who was I going to tell? But as years went on, I left residential school, like I said, and I got a job at a nurse's station, and I met up with my husband. And when you were in residential school, you were never shown any love and affection. You didn't know how to show love and affection because you never ever got any love and affection. No one told you that they loved you or cared about you or anything like that. So that was you have no self-esteem. You have nothing. You were nothing because that's what you were told all your life. And that's carried on with me all through my life. I'm 76 years old now. I married a man that I thought was going to love me too, but one abuse just led to another abuse. When we went to when I was ahead of my story now, but I go back. We were getting married, and we had to go to. I wasn't a Catholic. He was a Catholic, so he said we're gonna go to see the priest because you're turning Catholic, and my mother wouldn't let me marry a woman that didn't turn Catholic. So anyway, I went to the priest. We done our counseling there, and the priest said to me, he said, if you're doing doing anything during the day and your husband wants to have sex with you, he said, you're going to have to stop what you're doing, and that's what you're going to have to do. So anyway, that's all I knew of it. Anyway, I had 5 children. Don't ask me how I had them. I don't know. I had a nervous breakdown. I ended up in hospital for five months. I had all kinds of psychiatrists and doctors and everything looking after me, and I was in hospital, like I said, and having shock treatment 3 times a week. And when there was an orphanage in St. John's at the time, and when that opened up about brothers and sexual abuse in an orphanage in St. John's, that's when I broke out talking about residential school. And I said to my psychiatrist, how come? I said, oh, this is coming out of my mind now that I can talk about residential school. He said, because your body works. When you go through so much abuse in your life, your brain just blocks off all the bad trauma that was going on in your life. I'm sorry, but if I got mixed up in this stuff. Anyway, like I said, I had 5 children, and I didn't know how to show no love and affection because I wasn't shown any love and affection, and my husband was abusive. So I went from one abusive life to another. But anyway, when my last child turned 11 years old, I went to work. I went to work in a, believe it or not, a mental institution hospital in St. John's. It's called the Waterford Hospital. I went there and I worked there for 27 years. But in the meantime, I had a lot of support from all the doctors that looked after me. I don't know how I made it through, but anyway, with the help of the Creator, I'm not a holy person, but I am spiritual. And I think this is what got me through where I'm at today. And through First Light Friendship Center, I went there and they helped me to where I'm at today. That's 15 years ago. For my mother, I love my mother, but I didn't like her. Sorry to say that, but that's how it was. And for my sisters and brothers, we never had no contact. So we were like strangers to each other because we were all separated as family. And still to this day, like, we're not really close because, I don't know, it's just that we just have nothing in common, I guess. They don't talk about residential school as much as I do. They probably got scars in that too, but I just speak for myself. And through First Light, they gave me a lot of support. And like I said, my husband passed away, but 10, 12 years ago. He turned into being an alcoholic and an abusive, and he was very abusive. When I came out to St. John's, my children went to school, and they were called names, Eskimos and Skimos and all that stuff too. So I found it hard to try to rear up my children on my own because I had tried to keep the peace, because if your husband was sleeping after a drink and binge, he would get violent. I tried to show my children love and affection, but I show them more love and affection today than I did when they were smaller. But thank God and the Creator that they all turned out to get their education. But I had one daughter that she turned to drugs and alcohol, and she passed away about 4 years ago. So I try to take one day at a time. And like I said, with First Light and the staff down there and my friends that I met along the way, they gave me a lot of support and they believed in me. And I went through a lot of circles, and First, when I used to start doing circles, I wouldn't speak because I said, there's nobody that went through what I went through. And as I got involved with the circles, going to circles and going to groups, support groups that then listen to other people with their stories, I said, geez, I'm not the only person that got a story to tell. And that's when I started to tell my story. And I figured, well, if I could help one person, I would be satisfied. But there's a lot of people out there hurting. And I've said still to this day, there's so much violence and abuse going on, and still, but I think we all have to go through something in life to share and to help and support people along the way. And I just thank the Creator every day for where I'm at. And I just have so many people to thank, and I think they all know who they are at first light. And like I said, the doctors, and to this day that I'm still on medication for post-traumatic stress syndrome. And I guess I'll be on that for the rest of my life. And still I do give myself a hard time. I still say that I was called stupid and everything else in my life. Sometimes I do stuff and I say, God, Emma girl, you're something done, you're something stupid. And then I says, no, I'm not. I'm just as smart as the next one. But sometimes I'm my own worst enemy, I think, sometimes, because when you're told that you're nothing, you're never going to amount to anything, I think it just stays with you for the rest of your life. And I still have good days, and I have a lot of bad days, but I get through them all. And like I said, with the Creator and people like you, and everybody had a lot of support from groups like this, and I thank the National Gathering for inviting me here to come to share my story. And people says, well, why do you speak about it so much? And I said, well, if you stop speaking about it, it might happen again, because you never, you don't know these things. And I think a lot of things happen for a reason, and I think this is the reason that we have all these gatherings, and that so we can speak about it, so we can help other people that's going through the same thing today. Not through, like all the children that never made it home, and their families, and they're probably passed on, and there's still people out there hurting because they don't know, this got to carry on, because if it don't, it's going to just happen again. Because we just have to keep pushing and hope for the best and believe in the Creator, and that's what keeps me going every day. So I want to thank everybody for listening, and it's just heavy, but we have to speak. We have to talk about it, and I think that's all I have to say for now. Thank you. God bless.
Oh, you're going to speak?
I want to stay beside you. No, just stay here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be right behind you.
Okay, can I go now? It's very, very hard coming after those two because we lived very familiar place, a place that should never, ever, ever have happened. And I will start off my story, so I don't know how it all started. So bear with me, dear. On February 29th, 1880, from Bishop Grenier in Saskatchewan Herald to the government was the beginning of impact that exists today. In this letter, the bishop clearly states if they brought us 100 Indians and half-breed children to the mission, when they learn they will no longer be Indians, becoming a good citizen, earn living, and being useful to our country. This started the most tragic, destructive separation of the Native people, creating losses of so many tribes. Loss of family, loss of community, loss of language, loss of cultural heritage. The most important of all, loss of identity. This was our destiny for over 160 years. During the 1870s, the federal government, in all its power and wisdom, decided to educate all Indians, Métis and Inuit children. The two main objectives were, number one, to remove the children from the culture of their home, families, traditions, and culture. Two, to teach them to accept the dominant society. They figured and they assumed that our culture, our language, and spiritual beliefs were inferior, and to educate us to kill the Indian in the child. They built over 132 federal supported schools across Canada, Catholic, Anglican churches, to separate these schools and make us all acceptable to all the changes, deny their heritage and language, and become white. For thousands and thousands of children who resided in those schools was destructive, cruel, many recall hell on earth. They suffered, they endured, and they survived. At what cost, my friends? At what cost? At that time, we were nobody's children. Everyone forgot about us again until 1997, when the government announced a statement, a reconciliation towards Aboriginal people with establishment operations to residential school system. In his address, Minister Stewart acknowledged that we know what led to the supervision of Aboriginal values and culture, and left a legacy to the loss of so many of us. Finally, the silence was broken. For many of us, was a beginning, and publicly acknowledge that this was a grave mistake, was the first step towards Canada, towards Aboriginal people. What effect did this announcement have on the survivors? That day long ago, and today, words still fail me. How can I expect all the feelings and the pain that were buried for so many years? It's not easy when you start getting flashbacks for so many years of silence, throughout memories of pain and suffering, being helpless with no hope. And no hope was something destructive, and so many of us almost really gave up. Nightmares of being alone and lost. How many times I remember as a child looking after my two little sisters, saying, why did we do wrong? Whose fault? What did we do wrong? Why does nobody care about us? But we moved on. But it has never, ever will be easy, yesterday or today, for the survivors. Survivors are very precious people. There's not too many of us left, but we'll always remember. Our hearts are beating with love for everyone, because we know that we did win. We're still here. Memories of the physical, sexual, spiritual, and mental abuse that happened during those convent doors, which left many former students deeply hurt, emotionally wounded up. We did not understand why we were there, why we were treated so cruelly. What happened to our parents and family? We were controlled, and decisions were made for us from morning to night. We were severely punished when we spoke our language. It was drilled into us day and day and day that our culture and the way of our life was wrong. We were savages and had to embrace the white man's way of life and language. We must obey. I hate that word. I will hate that word. We were witnesses of the darkest time in Canada history. For goodness sakes, we were only children. I remember when life started to give up for us. We tried so hard to keep our life in the old days with our mom, my cocoons, with everybody when we were so happy. But as time, when nobody come to see us, nobody wrote us, nobody come to check with us. So we started to lose our faith and our hope. And after 10 years, I know, and I was one of them, that the guilt that we carried, and we always will, because at this time, we should have known what was happening to us. Oh, come. But we were so innocent, and they even took the innocence out of our little ones, from 3 to 6-year-old girls and boys, and that is history. As a result, many thousands of our young people have suffered from addiction, depression, problems with intimacy and personal relationship. Many never made it out of the convent alive. It happened right in our school. For many suicides, that there's no answer. Many are buried in unmarked graves all over our country. What a tragedy. Why are our kids? What did our children? What did we deserve? When you were when you were raised with no love, no hope, and no one who cares for many of us, the announcement came too little and too late. We have paid a high price for our years in residential school, endured it so very much. For education we did not receive, and lost our cultural heritage. We now have a voice, and our message to the government today is loud and clear. No more. We have paid enough. We are capable of making our own decisions. We need recognition and our acceptance of our own distinct cultural heritage and society. If you are sincere about building a strong relationship with the Aboriginal people, accept that we are not a people of our own rights. Every one of us feel very strongly, time has come. This is the time now. Now is the time to be strong, and time to own your own personality, your own identity. Yes, I know, as a Métis lady, I know we had a hard time. I know we all have. But we have to learn to work together. We have to. Because this is the most important thing for our children and for the future. 10 lost years. How little did we know our lives and childhood would change as we were forced into the unknown. My 2 little sisters were clinging to me, crying, we want to go home, we want mommy, we want daddy. I have no answer. As I held them, with tears running down my face. At 8 years old, I was only linked to Mom and Dad, our family and community. And that's the day I became a mother. I cannot explain how horror and fear as we step into another world. We were taken to a big building called a convent, and we were met by a nun. We didn't know what a nun was, dressed all in black, covered face. My little sisters got scared and started screaming. The nun said, "You be quiet, you learn how to listen and obey." What do you mean? We never know what they meant, but we sure learned over the years. Sadly, we found out that day one of the girls was pulled up by her hair and then gave her 10 strokes with a large strap. We were introduced to violence and witnessed many, many, many more during the following years. These stories are true. All came out when the silence was broken after 100 years. I lived, saw the inhuman treatment, and stood by watch and happen, and kept our mouth shut. That memory will haunt me forever. Many of us have come out because we realize how important it is, our story, what really happened to those behind those closed doors. We must never forget that started in late 1800s. The pain goes on, and we think about thousands and thousands of children on the journey of no end. Nobody has a right to treat you like that. Not human. Nobody has a right to take away your cultural heritage. Nobody has a right to take away your destiny. Nobody has a right to put pressure on you and tell you you are going to hell. They try to control us. And, and many of us started to feel ashamed of our skin, our culture, and our language. We must admire and respect the resilience of these children who endured, survived, who are still here today. A proud people who could not be destroyed. But at what cost, my friends? At what cost? We learn to kiss away the tears and talk away the fears. That's something that we learned many times, many times. There's so much hate. There's so much, I can't even say the word. It's too much. Can you imagine how devastating it was for us? From devoted, loving parents and community, a safe, carefree, and happy child, to walk into a cold, unfeeling, unknown, being beaten, threatened, neglected, and abused, with no one to talk to, nowhere to go. No one cared. We were only children. Over the years, I've talked to many elders and survivors and heard the heartbreaking stories, the emotional, mental, and physical abuse they endured. It's very similar, spending a lifetime searching forever, searching for answers that we will never hear, living in limbo, trying to heal the story and pain that cannot be reached. Many of the survivors remember the tremendous impact of literally being pulled from their mother's arms, the screaming, the sobbing, still ring in our ears, experience a great gear, not knowing what was happening, where they're going, and where to ever see the parents again, and many, many others did not. It was cruel and terrifying. There were whole scars that many will carry us all our lives. A day that we remember, a day that our lives change forever. So many carry up their minds and their hearts the sight of the mothers' faces filled with horror, fear, and pain, and for a great number of them, the only a memory, as it turned out, to be the last they saw of their parents and their way of life. Can there be anything more tragic than all these children experience? Yes, unfortunately, the worst was yet to come. Entering into the unknown is terrifying, even for adults. Can you imagine what it's like for 2, 3, 4, or 5? A new culture in their life begins. They are now in a difficult and strange world. Suddenly, before you know it, you are strange faces, different colors, hair and skin. They expect a different language, a dress and different, and the voices are loud and intimidating. Loss of family has been the most impact that we experience. We couldn't even remember who they were. How would people expect these children to go on with their life, to remember their past? They had no way of knowing it. And with my love and my heart, and I pray that everyone will always remember and carry your heart, keeping your heart open, because our children are the most important part of our life, and they deserve the best, and so do you. And I love you. God bless you all. Protect yourself. Be kind to each other, because we are one people. And remember, nobody ever separate us again. God bless you all, and thank you. And thank you for, it's very, very hard to do this. You know, you get so that I get so weak after, because all your emotions are going through your whole body, and you can feel the pain going in. But we know where it's important. We know you're here to hear it. And right now I want to mention that Don't forget, you're going to be all over you. And don't forget, because they'll be coming. There's another big, big wave of our people. But be careful. Make sure that you hear what's most important for us, for our family, for nobody else, our family. It's about time we got selfish and start thinking about ourselves. It's about time. I thank you so much. Thank you for being here to help share with everything. And it breaks my heart, but I know when I came in this door that I would be fine. I would be really fine, so wonderful meeting all these people, because I do know how to love. They never took that away from me. Bye-bye now.